Hey there, hi there, ho there. Good morning and rise and shine. I'm Dawn Soldai, your host for the Drones at Dawn podcast. This is our inaugural, so thanks so much for joining us. It's going to be a great interview with our illustrious guest here, Miriam McNabb. So let me tell you a little bit about the podcast. It's really all about elevating the industry and talking about the hottest issues and use cases. And we're going to jump right into it. So, Miriam, welcome. Thank you for being our first guest.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here.
As I was putting together I'll call it the faculty list, I thought, boy, who would be the best one right out of the box? And of course, it was you because you have 25 years experience in industry. Most people out there, you probably know Miriam from Dronelife.com. If you haven't subscribed to it, you need to, because every day she's pushing out articles about the most important issues that you need to know about. And what you don't know about Miriam, maybe, it's she's much more than just Dronelife.com. So DroneRacing.com, is that right, Miriam?
That's right.
You've got a jobs board and all kinds of things. So I don't want to butcher your bio. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about your background and what else you have going on besides Dronelife?
Sure. We have a sort of suite of drone companies. So Dronelife.com is obviously our kind of the hub of our companies, but we also have Job for Drones, which is a job posting board. Licensed drone providers can go set up a profile, put in their location. People looking for you can find you that way. We also have droneflyers.com, which we purchased from an early blogger who started back in 2012. That's got great content for people just starting out in the industry. And droneracing.com, which we kind of keep putting in content as it comes up. Drone racing is it's really a niche, but it's a lot of fun to watch. It's a really exciting way to get sort of different people into the industry and exposed to drones.
Well, that's a great segue, actually, Miriam, because I wanted to ask you, what got you into the drone industry in the first place?
Well, my husband and I, my partner, Harry McNabb, are serial entrepreneurs. We have been sort of engaged in our own businesses for many, many years. And in 2013, a group of investors and our publisher, who is a veteran of ZDNet, that's Alan Phillips, brought us on as consultants to help launch Dronelife. And so they saw drones as a new niche tech, just decided to start a business there on the edge and see what happened. In the beginning, they needed somebody to produce content. And as the only liberal arts degree in the whole entire group, I got elected to write that content. I wrote 2 articles a day, Monday through Friday, every single week. And, it was just not long at all before I got completely hooked. I started having the opportunity to go to conferences and meet people in the industry. And I used to tell Harry, it feels like sort of this secret society, because there were all these people like you who came out of the military who had such deep knowledge of aerospace industry, used all these 3-letter acronyms. I never knew what anybody was talking about. But it was so exciting. And I loved kind of being around it. And now, 3,000 articles later, I'm editor-in-chief and Harry is the CEO. It's really the best job I've ever had. I love going to shows. I love having gotten in sort of at the beginning of the start of the commercial drone industry. And I just can't wait to see what happens. New stuff comes across my desk almost every day.
Well, I totally agree. Once you all call it catch the bug, right?
Yeah.
You just, it's addictive. I mean, and we're at this, I will say, this inflection point in the industry, so many things happening. And so I want to talk about that now because, people, they look back at 2020 and some people have referred to it as the year that was not, but when you think about, seriously, the pandemic really rocked everybody's world. It rocked the world. It rocked everybody's world. And it really had interesting impacts on the drone industry. So let's take a second to look back at 2020. And, as you look back, Miriam, and, with the chunk of the 3,000 articles that you covered last year, what would you say are the top three things that people should know that happened in 2020 if they happen to miss it, or that we just want to highlight here?
Yeah, I mean, it was 2020. So let's start with this. It's impossible not to mention coronavirus. So obviously, it was terrible for many families. And, you know, it's been an extremely challenging time for many, many families around the world. But I really feel like the drone industry kind of showed the startup spirit and the resilience that makes the industry really exciting. The number of coronavirus response projects that we saw this year, they were really creative. We saw contactless delivery, obviously, that one's been heavily publicized, disinfection, or just kind of carrying on with regular business. Grant Gio, who you're familiar with, attorney in the drone industry, wrote this great article for us. Drones are the ideal tool for keeping the economy moving despite social distancing. And here's how. And that was such a popular article on our site because he just was able to reach out and name so many different companies who were really helping businesses just carry on when they couldn't have staff on site. Regulators really stepped up to make exceptions to the rules or to be more flexible to allow new applications for coronavirus response. And the industry really stepped up to take advantage of that. They were really working to think of ways to help. And I have to say that I was really proud to be part of the drone industry. I always am. But, in response situations, in disaster situations, the drone industry has really proven to be just amazing. I don't know if it's because we're also so new and so young that's kind of the spirit. But it wasn't only in terms of drone operations. So Skydio stepped up. They lent their facilities to help distribute PPE in the beginning, even when their own facility had to be closed down because they were in California. Ventilator production because they had the technology to help build the engines. So out in France, they were doing that. There were many companies that really stepped up to support their communities, and Skydio, DJI, a lot of other companies donated drones to law enforcement agencies, public safety agencies for coronavirus response. So it was coronavirus. It's been a tough time, but the drone industry really did what they could to mitigate the effects of that.
Yeah, I think that was definitely one of the top three, I say, developments / stories, sort of storylines throughout 2020. Before Miriam, I started freelancing for you in Dronelife. I worked and I still work with a lot of other folks, but I wrote an article, Innovation Loves a Crisis, for Commercial UAV News. And that made their top 10 because, just like with Grant's article, we talked about all the ways that drones were doing good. And I really believe that is true. And we did see that. To your point about disasters and the use of drones in disasters, what I will tell you about the military is I was part of that, one of the first domestic drone operations way back before the most recent California wildfire. There was the California Rim wildfire in 2013. And the California National Guard actually flew, I think it was a Reaper, over that fire and completely changed the battle rhythm. Fire, no helicopters needed, putting manpower at risk. They were able to do operations at night for the first time to be able to see that fire, 24/7 ops. And it was amazing. And so, these use cases and these abilities for drones to do good, they are solid. And it was so great to see that because as you know, Miriam, I think you're one of these big advocates. Public perception is key to enabling the drone industry. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. But so if that's one of your top three, what were the other two for 2020?
Sure. So I think one of the other sort of major developments, the international drone industry is booming. And now the US drone manufacturing industry is really having a moment. So there was a lot of political action this year. There was kind of pushback on federal agencies around using foreign manufactured drones. The US government made a step which was sort of interesting when they granted some drone companies coronavirus relief money. And what that really did is recognize that the drone industry is part of critical infrastructure, that it is a critical um, industry here in the US. And so that was sort of a very interesting step to acknowledge that the drone industry is very important in this country. And so there was the development of the Blue SUAS list, which was a list of government approved products manufactured here in the US. You have done a lot of work on this, on interpreting some of the very confusing sometimes, sort of legal things that go in and out. I don't know if you want to talk about the import and export control stories, but there were a lot of developments towards that led to the U.S. drone manufacturing industry having a little bit of a push to the forefront of people's awareness this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's a couple different rationales floating around. I think there are camps on both sides of this, right? Will it kill ultimately the entire commercial drone industry, or is it really good for American companies? And you're right, the export controls and all of the things happening, more to follow, right? Because this all remains a work in progress, because a lot of these things occurred in a flurry of activity right at the end of the last administration. And, the question is, will those policies remain in place through the Biden administration? We've seen upwards of, I think, 40 executive orders at this point. One was the Buy America order. And I think people are confused by that. It applies to federal agencies, but applies to those contracts that the federal acquisition regulation applies to. And so, there's nuances here. I'm going to cover that here shortly with you, actually, in an upcoming article. So I'm excited to write about that. But absolutely, so cybersecurity concerns was one basis. And then there was some human rights concerns for different reasons tied to different initiatives. But at the end of the day, to see U.S. companies thriving in this environment, doing better, I mean, that's just amazing. So I agree. I think that was a big story. I think it's going to continue to be a big story in 2021 as we see how this evolves.
Yeah, and I think another thing about the issue here of U.S. companies is, even when or if things change further, if the new administration does something different, those companies have received a lot of investment during this last period. And so that has, they can move forward now. I think that being on this list sort of and other U.S. companies being able to get more profile is still going to help them long run, even if these federal policies evolve in a different direction.
Absolutely. So that was I'll call it storyline number 2. Did you have a third that you wanted to talk about looking back on 2020?
I do. And it's I thought about this one carefully because, of course, it came right at the end of the year, but I decided that it was a critical story because we discussed it all year long, even if they didn't release it to the end of the year. And that was remote ID. And the interesting thing is that, of course, if you have me on again next year, next February, I may be saying remote ID was a big story of 2021 because
absolutely.
And then 2022, when it's actually implemented or whatever. But I do think that the release of the remote ID, flight over people and flight over moving vehicles too, everybody calls it remote ID, but it included flight at night and flight over people and flight over moving vehicles. Those were huge steps for the industry. We've been waiting for those for a long time. Brendan Schulman of DJI pointed out on Twitter that allowing flight at night, regularizing that application, that actually has the potential to save a lot of lives. When you can do search and rescue 24/7 using thermal imaging, that's a very significant application. Flight over people, including moving vehicles, that was a very significant statement, which will allow more urban applications in commercial drones, more drone delivery applications. Remote ID is such a complex issue. People have very different, views on this. It's still being unpacked. People are still figuring out how manufacturers are going to respond to it, what it's going to mean for them. It's going to take a while for that to all be unpacked so that everybody understands it fully. Certainly, it'll take a while for me to understand it fully. But I do think that having it published is a step forward, because once it's published, no one has to guess what those standards are. They can now sort of take that and run with it, work towards compliance. So this is what it is. Now we just have to work towards compliance. And I think that is a really good step forward for the commercial drone industry.
Yeah, I totally agree with your assessment that it will be a continuing story through 2021 and beyond, because there's still so many different facets of the requirements of those. And there are two rules. It was separate RID and ops over people at night and over moving vehicles. But a lot more to follow. I think at one point it says like the Jelly of the Month Club, it's going to be the gift that keeps on giving all the year long.
Exactly.
Because, it wasn't published in the Federal Register until January 15th officially. That started a bunch of time clocks. So by the way, for folks out there, I also, with General James Potts, Major General Retired Air Force, authored a couple articles on that. I know, Miriam, you highlighted that in your publication as well. Those are for Insight Unmanned Systems magazine. So check those out, because we did kind of break down those rules. And in the upcoming edition, which we focus on inspections of the February-March edition of Insight Unmanned, we're kind of diving in a little bit deeper, as we promised. So more to follow there. Keep your eyes peeled, but definitely keep your eyes peeled on remote ID and ops over people in at night, because those will also continue to evolve throughout the year. All right, so let's talk about this year, since we're here. I mean, we're 30 days in. I can't believe it's already February. That's crazy. So what do you see? What do you think the big issues? We talked about a couple already, the things that'll continue evolving. Are there other big issues, maybe your top three, that you see for this year that we should keep our eyes looking out for?
Yeah, I do. So I have sort of three top kind of projections or things that I think will be big stories. Of course, there will be a lot of big stories and many that I can't anticipate. But I think that drone industry investment is actually going to keep going strong. So a couple years ago, I was at Intergeo and I saw the guys from Dronei. Dronei is a European drone research firm. Really smart guys, have a great methodology, really interesting stuff coming out of there. And they talked about, the sort of optimistic bit was over and now things were getting real in drone investment. But since then, we've seen like Skydio taking $100 million, which to my knowledge was the biggest kind of single chunk we in recent memory. I may be wrong about that, but at any rate, we have seen a lot of big deals going. So I think that drone industry investment is going to keep going strong. There may be fewer deals. It's not going to be, 2 million here, 2 million here, 2 million here to anybody with a kickstart, but there are larger amounts for companies with proven solutions. And we're getting to the point where those proven solutions are coming out. People are coming out of a 4 or 5 year development cycle and have something that's really working. So I think that that's exciting for the drone industry, because I think you'll see now when you see investment announcements, it's more about people building out their manufacturing capacity, people building out international presence. So good stuff there.
And Miriam, before you get to your second, projection for 2021, just to jump onto that, people will debate whether advanced air mobility or urban air mobility, the large aircraft, the eVTOLs, the electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicles, the autonomous passenger flights, all of these things, whether it's a continuum or not. Are they two separate industries? Are they the same? I would argue it's a continuum. It's a bigger drone with a different use case, and the rules are going to be different. Some, urban traffic management and how we do all that. It's all going to have to be integrated for all of these aircraft. But what's been shocking to me is in the last just really couple months, last year into this year, all the announcements I'm seeing on advanced air mobility and these companies, Joby doing great things. Obviously the Air Force's Agility Prime, they're out there working with Joby and other companies. But so many things. And then, as you said, not just the drone manufacturers, but the people doing detect and avoid technologies. Iris Automation comes to mind. I believe they just got like 13 million recently and investor funding. And so when you look at this, I would call it spectrum of the industry and the entire ecosystem, what you're seeing is this explosion of capital being put into it, and it's really exciting. And the regulations are starting to evolve. I really do feel like we're at a pivotal point this year. I think we're going to see a lot more. And so let me hear from you. What are the other two things you think we're going to see?
Totally agree with that too, what you just said. I do think that there's a lot of different things coming together and lots of investment, by the way, in the passenger drone or AAV or whatever you want to call it industry too. So I think that the third thing or second thing here is the drone delivery genie is out of the bottle. So we have been going for many, many years. Feels like many years, probably only 2 or 3, talking about drone delivery. But those drone deliveries have been really limited to a few tests here or there on test sites. Now, this last year, they were finally sort of brought into communities. The Christiansburg, Virginia trials in Florida that UPS was doing, Walmart doing trials with Drone Up right in the middle of Las Vegas. So now these drone delivery trials have really gone out into the community. Now we've got flight over people, flight over moving vehicles. I think finally we're going to see drone delivery move out of just a couple of little test spots and spread across the country.
Yeah, I think drone delivery is one of those perfect examples of drones for good that will positively impact public perception. It's
Right.
funny because you mentioned Drone Up, and they've been really, I'll quote Tom Walker, the CEO, he said they've been running headfirst into the regulations. I love that. They just had this delivery of Coca-Cola. I guess it had like
I love
coffee,
that. Yes, coffee,
like
Coca-Cola.
Like coffee. I will stick with my regular Joe and my Wonder Woman cup and call it good. But some people are like, oh, why aren't they delivering healthier products? I'm thinking because like Coca-Cola, like because they paid them, and it's not like they're delivering crack. But the point is, even though it's a marketing tool, like it's cool and it's getting people talking, and the point is they see that, look, this can work. People can do this.
It can work, and it's not going to cause a problem for us. It's going to help us. If we can get Coca-Cola with coffee from Walmart, we could get diapers from Walmart. It's
right. Yeah. Or our at-home COVID tests, which they were also doing. So,
right.
Absolutely. I think drone delivery is going to keep getting bigger and bigger throughout this year. What's your third projection?
Okay, so my third thing is in public safety. And public safety has also really been a fantastic application for drones. And they have really worked so hard. You have to give public safety agencies credit for helping to move the commercial drone industry forward, for really kind of stepping out and trying to invest in this technology. And I think that one of the reasons they've invested in this technology is because it's so beneficial, not only for public safety officers, but also for communities. There's just so many benefits to being able to evaluate a situation before you go in and to know exactly what you're dealing with, and for everybody to have a chance to kind of get the big picture on what's going on the ground. And I see that evolving. I think that I hope that there is some clarity on what drones are allowed from the federal government, because I think that has held them back a little bit. But groups like drone responders who are going out there trying to advocate for public safety agencies, trying to provide the education that they need, trying to provide the training that they require, are really building up. They have benefits for all parties. I think that there are enough examples out there now so that we're going to see a lot more public safety agencies investing. When it's a small town like I live in, maybe they have one or two drones and they share them, or for large cities, maybe they invest in larger programs.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the California Rim wildfire and using the military drone in that instance was a perfect example of how in emergency response drones can make a huge difference. I actually was at an amazing event a couple weeks ago here in Colorado at the Wings Over the Rockies Museum. They had a drone career day, and they had this group there that was doing search and rescue. They're a private organization, but they assist law enforcement. And they had actually use case, and it broke my heart. I mean, this poor woman, she was hiking alone. They found her with the drone. That's the bottom line. But it was obviously too late. It became a recovery mission and not a rescue mission at that point. But the ability to pinpoint, use artificial intelligence, and be able to find the color red because she had a red backpack, and to be able to find her and recover her remains and let her family have peace. It just gave me chills. And those are like the amazing uses that drones can be put to. I think, there's those other really inadvisable cases, and we saw some of those in 2020. Right? Let's use drones to take people's temperature, and it freaked everybody out. Or let's use drones to yell at people, tell them to go home. And then, they see this thing that, I don't know why. It's so unfortunate in a way that drones look like spiders, because they do. And it's like spiders yelling at me from the sky. That's creepy. But so many other good use cases, and those are the ones that I hope we see more of. I think you're exactly right. Okay, awesome. Well, let's see. We, folks that are out there, I know you're out there. I haven't seen the chat real active. Please know that we're here also to speak with you and answer your questions. I apologize for not mentioning that up front, but tap into Miriam's wisdom. I mean, she's got 3,000 plus articles under her belt. So you could probably ask her anything and she'll know the answer. I don't profess to be as
dangerous.
as educated as her. All right, we're coming around the home stretch here, just a couple minutes left. And so I really wanted to give practical tips to people. So let me ask you this, Miriam, tell the group here. What resources would you recommend them, in addition to, of course, Dronelife and some of the things you're working on? Where should people go to get the best information to keep up to speed in this industry, in your opinion?
Yeah, obviously we'd love to have people read Dronelife, but there are so many great bloggers and great YouTubers and great news sites out there. We really kind of encourage people to go out and look at everybody. A lot of them are offering fantastic content. I really feel like at this point in the industry, there's a lot of cooperation. So I would say that people who are looking for information or to improve their businesses, if you're looking for partners and collaborators, you really should look around for the local groups and organizations to join. And that's things like your local chapter of AUVSI, advocacy groups. There's the Drone Service Providers Alliance has just started up, Commercial Drone Alliance. If you're, sort of a larger company, Women in Drones is a great resource for women in the industry, or for every company that wants to kind of post jobs. They have a great job posting board. The AMA is doing a ton of work for people. That's modelaircraft.org. If you're interested in upping your skills and learning more about how to fly and joining other pilots to improve your skills, go look for those local organizations. There are great communities, and I really feel that there's a huge push to collaborate and help each other out here. going to industry shows like Interdrone, which is scheduled in person for next August. So excited to get back out on the road. I think my family is so sick of me now because I have not been traveling at all this year. This is where you're going to meet those partners and potential customers. I think we're all so anxious to get back out there and meet people in person. There's a real appetite to make deals, meet partners, and talk to other people. So I really encourage people to go out, look for those resources, and ask for help. This is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get clients in this industry. Do you have any experience? How do I create a statement of work? How do I create an invoice for these people? What's the expected delivery? Go out, join the organizations, and don't hesitate to ask.
Yeah, awesome. Totally agree. So literally 30 seconds, 30-second elevator speech here. How do you want to close here, Miriam? 30 seconds.
I would like to say that when I started my career, Google didn't exist. Concept of email was brand new. Internet wasn't a consumer product. It was something most people found a little hard to understand, felt exciting when you heard about it, a little risky. Looking back now, 30 years later, I wish I had jumped into an internet startup. I didn't. None of us can imagine life without the internet. Being here in the drone industry at this point in time, it feels like a second shot at getting in at the beginning of something really amazing, really big. I'm thrilled to be part of it. Really excited to be here. Hope all of you are too.
Well, I'm thrilled to have you as my first guest. So thank you so much for our time together today, Miriam. Everybody out there, like I said, please look Miriam up, subscribe to Dronelife. And of course, as we close here, I want to absolutely thank Interdrone for hosting this podcast, giving me this opportunity to speak with people like Miriam and to help elevate the industry, because I know that's what Interdrone is also all about. And so I agree, there's a ton of cooperation and lots of great content. So check out Interdrone, sign up when they put the registration link live to join us in Texas. It's going to be a blast. Okay, a couple of quick things. I didn't see too many questions, but if you want to know more, I have a Patreon page. You'll see it at the end. I will be answering things as we go there and be pushing up other content. So check that out. Also, if you want to know more about my company, P3 Tech, my website's there. Lots of information. A lot of the articles, actually all of the articles I've written, including those for Miriam and Dronelife. And finally, spread the word. If you're here and you liked what you saw, come back next week, tell your friends, tell other people, get the word out in social media. I'm excited to announce that next week, by the way, I didn't tell you this, I've kind of broken down the months into themes, and this month, not surprisingly, Miriam being the first one, is about the movers and shakers in this industry. And next week, we're going to have our second mover and shaker, a guy named Richard Nichols. He is from the United Kingdom and started a nonprofit called Airwards. It's like Air Awards. Think about like the Oscars for drone use cases. Really interesting concept he's put together, and we're going to be talking to him about what he's doing and how he is helping the elevate the drone industry next week. So tune in for more. And I think that's a wrap. So that was a ton of fun. Great to see you all. Hope to see you next week. Take
more
care.
On Patreon. There's more on your Patreon page too.
That's right. Yeah. There will be. So, all right, everybody out here, take care, be well, stay safe.